Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, Intel's 10-core Core i7, NVIDIA's 1070 is a GPU bargain, AMD's RX 480 might be an even better deal, 4K TVs on the desktop, a microbit for every student, and Digital Storm's badass all-in-one PC. All that and more coming up next on TWiCH.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiCH.
Bandwidth for TWiCH is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 366, recorded June 2nd, 2016. 10 cores and Turbo Boost 3. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Tracker. Tracker makes losing things a thing of the past. Pair Tracker to your smartphone, attach it to any item, and find its precise location with the tap of a button. Visit Tracker.com right now to take advantage of their Father's Day limited time sale through June 13th only, and enter the promo code TWiCH for a free color upgrade. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost, automated investment service and the most sophisticated way to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/TWiCH and sign up to get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/TWICH. Welcome to TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, TWiCH's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most engaging, most delightful, and quite possibly most confusing information about computer hardware, mobile devices, mobile hardware, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to have a little bit of home theater love, talking about the televisions and such, because Mr. Robert Heron joins us for the podcast while Mr. Ryan Shroud continues his week of hardware immersion at Computex in Taiwan, where, among other things, we have seen... it's crazy. I'm still trying to wrap up the idea that Asus has delivered a robot for $599 that kind of looks like a BB-8, but different, with a little smiley face. And it is dedicated the Zenbo. And it's been interesting to watch people's reactions to it, because most of the time when we see a robot, it's either really just a remote control thing that doesn't actually do anything robotic, or is... incredibly expensive, and we never see it outside of an actual demo, and nobody's really, done much interacting with it. It's mostly, been videos from a big presentation, but the idea here is that they have an actual robotic type device, and it's zenbo.asus.com is the website for that. I certainly wouldn't have expected to show up in the middle of Computex. We have a parade of motherboards. We've got a 10-core processor from Intel, and Zenbo, your smart little companion. So,
anything that can helping out with, say, the grandparents or kids.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's got
I
a
am
very
curious to see what sort of functionality that the robot actually does provide beyond, being able to do object avoidance and things like that,
right,
or to connect to the internet and read stuff to you. What basic helping functionality is this thing really going to provide?
Delivers spoken reminders of important information, such as doctor's appointments, medication schedules, or anything else that needs to be remembered. Facilitates stress-free digital experiences by helping with a variety of online tasks, such as browsing social media and shopping. It's a fun and educational playmate. It's like Teddy Ruxpin for young people and old people.
I was going to say, you can do most of that functionality with your smart device currently, but having a device that could literally chase you around the room to remind you, I think it does step up the robot game a little bit. Yeah. So that could be really useful.
It's funny because it's supposed to have like built-in stereo speakers, like decent stereo speakers. It's a home automation controller, or it'll control smart home devices. It's got some learning elements. It does facial expressions so it can react. I guess it'll get like a pissy face if you don't take your pills. Natural language query. I'm really curious. I think the thing kind of blows my mind about it is $600 for something that might actually function. I can also totally see my kids dragging it outside and getting it stuck in the gravel in the backyard.
Or your neighborhood hacker just taking it over completely.
Oh, my goodness.
Because then you have a mobile spy unit right in your house. And I really want to read the end user licensing agreement on this device just to see if there's any interesting language to be had.
That's true.
No, yeah, but you know what? A good robotic device like that, I can't wait to see it in the market because the price point's right, and there's some potential usability there that could really be a first step, I think, toward being in a sense like an artificial assistant, so to speak.
Right.
But
it's a good thing.
As we march forward, let it come.
Well, the price is still what kind of impresses me about it. Like $600, that's really reasonable for something if it actually works the way it's supposed to. Moving even lower down in the price category, those crazy folks in England once again have done something amazing. The BBC Micro bit computer is now available to everyone. It's a super stripped down. It's kind of like an Arduino, right? And you look at it, year 7 students in the UK, the idea is to give free tiny computers, microcomputers, to an entire year group nearing completion. About 80% of schools have received theirs to date, writes Jamie Rigg at Engadget.com. It's basically the board itself is 13 pounds, battery pack, USB cable, and some, activities going with it is 15 pounds. You get 10 for 140 pounds. It's got programmable buttons, an LED array, sensors, I/O rings, Bluetooth connectivity. Microsoft, Samsung, and ARM work with the BBC to develop it. And if you're a parent, the BBC has some tremendous online resources for education and teaching your kids to spell and learn and history and science in a way that I think kind of goes far beyond anything we have here in the United States. But this is pretty cool, that the idea that an entire generation of students is all going to have the same experience with this hardware. That's the goal. I just think that's really, really cool. And if you want to order one, you can order one now. Although how long it's going to take to get one is an entirely different question. Microbit.co.uk is the website. And let's see if they can still order them. Oh,
I like the sensor package and the fact that it has some LED lighting built into it as well, and the input-output capabilities. Just having that built right into it and being able to go into it and program it and to get some, not only just to see what it can do and what you can come up with, but just it has some basic features built in where you can get started just on the coding side of things without having to add a bunch of extraneous parts and things like that as well. But it looks like you have those options down the road if you want. But that seems like a pretty cool kit for the money.
It's pretty cool. I don't know. I just think it's amazing to watch what they've been doing. Like, the Raspberry Pi, the Microbit. Go UK. You go you. So probably should talk about some desktop type computer hardware. Probably the biggest surprise for me, certainly, coming out of Computex. Core i7 6950X, the Broadwell-E, the 10-core Broadwell-E. So last major enthusiast part we saw from Intel, the extreme mayhem-y kind of thing, was an 8-core processor, the Haswell E platform. Broadwell's on the X99 chipset, run on DDR4 memory. This is pretty cool, and probably the coolest thing about it, 10 cores, right? So you can do all of the multitasking. If you've been dying to play a video game, render stuff in Photoshop and download something simultaneously with 400 web tabs open that are doing who knows what in the background, this is your processor. You better have all the money, though. This is really a high-end. I'm sure people are going to build ultimate gaming PCs around these, but for the vast majority of consumers for these are going to be people who do like heavy duty video editing or crazy coding or use super high end 3D apps, because this is a $1,700 CPU.
10 cores,
20 threads, no waiting. What's really cool about it, and Ryan talks about it a bunch on his review on PC Pro, he got hands-on with it, is Turbo Boost Max Technology 3.0, which essentially means you're going to have to load some software into Windows 10, for example. And what it does is talks to the processor. The processor figures out which of the cores on the processor runs faster, because usually you can overclock one core a little bit farther than the rest of them for whatever reason. And this will assign that core to tasks you are working on, which I think is really, really cool.
For single-threaded workloads, that in particular,
yeah.
that's one of the big improvements I think you'll see over this part compared to what Intel was doing last year. Now, granted, the 10 core parts, you know, $1,800. Chances are not a lot of people are going to be going for that, but maybe the 8 core part or slightly fewer cores will get you as well. In addition to having that ability to overclock a single core to new and impressive levels for the single threaded application performance. It looks like a good solid part, granted.
Yeah, I mean, they start with the Intel Core i7. It's running at 3.4 gigahertz. It's like 15 megabytes of onboard cache, 6 cores, 12 threads, 28 PCI Express 3.0 lanes. You know, all these parts that they've released have 140 watt TDPs. You know, the next one up is running at 3.6 gigahertz, and again has 6 cores, 12 threads. But this time it has 40 PCI Express 3.0 lanes. The Core i7 6900K, and I should put that's 434, 617, and then for $1,000 you get 8 cores, 16 threads, 20 megabytes of cache, 40 PCI Express lanes, you know, and then they bump it all the way up to the 10 cores running at 3 gigahertz. You'll notice as they stuff more cores onto the processor, the clock speed drops from like 3.4. The base clock drops, you know, 400 hertz as you kind of climb up that mountain.
And they keep adding cache incrementally on up the scale. But otherwise, I think for gamers, you probably don't need the 10 core system. But
no, not for gaming.
Taking a step back, taking that step back. If I had $1,000 to spend, I'm probably buying a new graphics card. So
it's a good time for that between the 1080 and the 1070 per core overclocking.
Take my money.
Oh my goodness. It's well, you are actually you are in the running for a new system. Oh my goodness.
I really am. Although I just downloaded Doom and I started playing that over the weekend, and I have to say it runs surprisingly well on my older hardware at this point.
Yeah.
I'm rolling with a 6-year-old Intel processor, and the graphics card is much newer, but that gets upgraded every couple of years or so. But
encoding video here is what finally, because we both have, you still have a Core i7 920. It was encoding video here that finally got me on a Skylake 6700K. You know, it is expensive. Turbo Boost Max technology 3.0 is pretty amazing. Because one of the things Ryan says is it keeps it, quote, within striking distance of the Core i7 6700K using Skylake, all while jamming in 10 cores for maximum performance on multi-threaded workloads. Seriously, video rendering and coding 3D work, this is going to be the beast you have been waiting for. And firmware updates should be the only thing necessary to update your existing X99 motherboard. Nobody at Intel will talk about why they priced it at $1,700, Ryan says. You know, we've never really, I'm trying to think of the last time we saw something this expensive that was aimed at consumers. You know, Ryan would like it down to about $1,000 as quickly as possible. Well, you know, yeah, and that's that's an interesting point, right? You know, I don't know if the yields are an issue or they just want to get all of the money out of these, but you know, it's a $1,750 processor, and the performance per dollar, when you look at this kind of scaling charts that Ryan put together, you're looking at like, if more is better, higher is better. The AMD FX 8350 spanks the Core i7 6950X, just because it's so much cheaper. It costs a fraction of the price, but there's some good stuff going on here, and it should be interesting to watch the prices kind of settle down on that. Although maybe they won't. That would be sad.
To finally see motherboard designs now where having 32 or 64 or greater gigabytes of RAM on board isn't a big deal anymore. So you can not only find those systems, but there are plenty of memory packages now that incorporate, all the RAM you could possibly need for whatever kind of, high-end project or high-end PC you might need.
I mean, it's funny you should mention that because, if you take a look at, let me move this up. MSI dropped their motherboard announcements this week. You know, and we talked about this last year when we looked at Asus and MSI. But if you take a look at this, if you take a look at this article on PC Per, Jeremy Hellstrom wrote this one up. You want to see MSI's new motherboards? Well, here's the motherload. Like, I think at one point we had 2 vendors last year that dropped 34 motherboards, Robert. And, you know, and you start scrolling down like, oh, here we go. The X99, the 8 workstation with 8 ECC DIMMs. Like, a lot of cases, if you don't know these motherboards exist, you know, you really need to parse with the feature set on some place like Newegg just to find out, like, oh, okay, which one has the most memory slots and how many millions am I going to pay for it? But ton of new motherboards out this week, so it should be interesting to see.
I appreciate the digital white camo pattern.
Stylish.
I was checking out Asus's new motherboard too. They have eight memory slots, 4 full PCI lanes. So if you're looking to build a system with multiple graphics cards, not just 2, this is a good year to do that as well. You can really see how a lot of this is just being aimed toward VR technology in particular, having dual HD displays or greater on each eye. It requires some hardware to run all that and to run it effectively.
Yeah,
if you're talking that 90 hertz refresh rate that they're aiming for on these titles.
The problem is they don't do SLI yet. They don't do Crossfire yet for the VR stuff.
Gotta kick it up. It's coming.
It's coming.
Are you telling me to wait? Should I wait another generation of hardware?
No, you shouldn't. You should buy or if you have a 1080p monitor, go buy a 950, you know, or maybe a 970, but wait a couple weeks till the prices settle out after the 1080 and 1070 have flooded the market. But we'll talk about that.
Man, I want a 1080 so bad, but I can
Don't
wait.
We all? It is such a badass card.
I need some solid state drives first, so preferably terabyte sized.
Terabyte size rated, because why not? Terabyte NVMe rated drives. I can hear Alan Malventano chuckling all the way from West Virginia right now. West Virginia, Kentucky. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get flack for that one. Let me take a moment to thank one of our sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Tracker. Smart cars, people, smartphones, smart homes. Technology's made everything smart, but losing your possessions can make smart people feel less than smart. I don't care what it is. Is it your backpack? Is it your keys? Is it your favorite sweater? There's nothing worse than not being able to find something. Okay, maybe you're not going to put a tracker on your sweater, but Tracker is pretty amazing. It's a coin-sized device. You attach it to things, and you can find them, right? You just pair the tracker to your smartphone, you attach it to anything, and find its precise location with a tap of a button. It is that easy. You can customize 2-way separation alerts to receive notifications before you leave your item behind, like geofencing. It screams at you to wait. You left that perfect hat there. If you lost your phone, hey, press the button on the tracker and the phone rings even if it's on silent, which is so awesome. Find the missing phone. With over 1.5 million devices, Tracker has the largest crowd GPS network in the world. The Tracker app records your lost item's last known location on a map. When another Tracker user comes within a 100-foot range of your item, you'll receive a GPS update of your item's location. Tracker is also partnered with leading companies like HP, allowing companies to build trackable products and utilize the scale of Tracker's crowd GPS network. Tracker is enabled by Bluetooth Low Energy, so the battery lasts over a year, which is awesome because there's nothing worse than your super cool tracking device running out of juice. You can also purchase a water-resistant case, which is perfect for pet collars. People, never lose a thing again with Tracker. The hardest thing you'll ever have to find is their website, thetrackr.com, thetracker.com. Don't miss the Father's Day limited sale through June 13th only. Buy 2 devices and get 2 free. Plus, just for our audience here at Twitch, enter the promo code TWICH for a free color upgrade. That's TheTrackr.com, promo code TWICH. Get yourself some trackers. Stop losing your gear. We want to thank them for supporting This Week in Computer Hardware. Ready to answer a question, Robert? Are you braced for impact, sir?
Yes, I'm braced. Well braced. Bring it on.
At Techno Hermit tweets, Are 4K TVs finally good enough for desktop computers instead of 4K monitors, color accuracy, etc.?
Maybe.
Depends on the 4K TV.
Yeah. You would every 4K TV can act as a 4K monitor. So
Yes.
by using either DVI or HDMI or DisplayPort, whatever output your computer has, if the graphics chipset supports 4K output, you can connect that to most TVs that support 4K resolution. The scaling can be done pixel to pixel, so you're not dealing with overscan or anything like that.
Right.
The big things you won't be able to do really would be stuff like high dynamic range support or wide color gamut support. If you're thinking of somehow making that your video player, your PC as your source of your HDR content, not so much. But in terms of just using it as a display, connect it. Many of these 4K TVs actually will support 1080p resolution input at 120 hertz. The bandwidth would be equivalent to doing, say, 4K at 60 hertz, or actually it'd be 4K at 30 hertz. So there is that in mind. Generally, with any TV, if you're connecting a computer to it, you want to use the TV's cinema or movie picture preset that will enable the least amount of possible artifact or enhancement features that could interfere with the picture quality. Things like sharpening or anything else that could interfere, especially with text. If you want to read the text clearly, you want to make sure things like sharpness are turned down. Generally, that movie or cinema picture preset will just automatically take care of that for you. Now, as far as response time goes, you might find that the TV's game mode or one of the TV's presets offers a better response time for a gaming scenario. Right. And then beyond that, I think it would really come down to just the size of the screen. If you're going to find yourself moving your head left to right just to see the entire screen in all one shot, that might not be the best scenario for you. You may not need a 40-plus inch computer monitor. Just be aware of the ergonomics involved when you're dealing with stuff like that.
Well, I remember playing around back in the day. We would have early 480p monitors. And you would watch people because they were like 40-inch monitors. They're these big television screens, and they were great for DVDs. But if you tried to use them as a monitor, you ended up doing the sort of, I'm playing tennis as I'm trying to read something. And 4K kind of eliminates that because of the pixel density on the screen. But if at 40 inches is really big for a desktop monitor. 32 inches isn't that bad.
Get your viewing distance right and make sure that you're not physically moving your head all over the place just to do basic work or to perceive the content you're trying to look at. One other thing that relates to 4K TVs and PC use has to do with the color quality. Most computers, when they're connected to a regular PC monitor, will be delivering full RGB, uncompressed video in a sense. The full signal for red, blue, and green, it'd be a digital or analog, depending on how you have it connected. Most of the time now, it's going to be digital. Some TVs actually have a setting built in to the display where it enables what they call sometimes UHD color or just an expanded color palette. In particular, it deals with getting full color support into the monitor from the PC, and you may have to enable that. There's some really basic test patterns that you can display in a browser window or whatever, just to show you if you're getting that what they call 444 color RGB from your source device, the computer, into the TV, and if it's displaying properly. Some 4K TVs, especially the older ones, were unable to do that true 444 uncompressed color information, and they would default down to something that was a little more compressed, but giving you mostly the same visual result. However, if you want that full experience, that's something else to look out for. On Samsung TVs, I see it as UHD color. On other brands of TVs, it's labeled something a little bit different. But usually it's something you have to enable per port on the TV itself. So once that's done, it's kind of like set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about it too much. Other than that, also consider too, are you paying for stuff you don't need? Like, do you not need speakers in a TV? That might be another reason to go for a monitor.
Can you even find speakers? I mean, I think what a lot of people are doing, including myself, you've seen like a 28 or 32 inch, 4K HD TV. Why? Well, I don't care because I want to put it 3 feet in front of me on a desktop. Is that, $400 HD TV or UHD TV or 4K TV going to hang with a $700 or $1,000 well, okay, let me put it this way: it's not going to hang with a Dell Ultra Sharp. It's not, but
probably not. And then a lot of desktop PC displays too can be pre-configured from the factory to have accurate color or something like that, where it's fairly well known performance right out of the box. Whereas with some TVs, you're gonna have to dig into the settings. Hopefully, the manufacturer did a good job on it. Otherwise, too, also be aware of just what desktop platform are you in. I find within Windows, I bought a smaller notebook recently that had the scaling within Windows turned up to 150% to make it usable. And what that does will then, slightly soften all the icons and other things on the screen, whereas I want that 1-to-1 pixel ratio. So do yourself a favor and try to look at the native 1-to-1 resolution on any display you're going to be using and see if it's too many pixels, literally. If you set that 4K monitor, if you're delivering 4K output to it, is the desktop at 1-to-1 pixel mapping just simply too small, or is everything just too damn tiny? And will you be then forced to use some scaling to make it all usable? Otherwise, you could have saved some money and went with, say, like a 1080p version of the TV or a slightly higher but smaller resolution PC monitor, something like that. So you kind of got to balance everything in perspective in terms of just, the size of the screen versus the size of the pixels versus what it is you're feeding it, and are you going to be able to work with it?
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But otherwise, there's no technical reason. I mean, LCD TVs, regardless of the resolution, can be used with any computer nowadays with a variety of different input types. So
just don't buy one of the 30 hertz ones if you can still find one out there.
I don't think they're around. And that's one of the tough things too. If you're trying to do 4K 60 on a PC monitor, you're likely using DisplayPort, and something to keep in mind. Although I haven't messed with the latest HDMI 2.0 cards to see if now they support 4K 60 over that interface as well. You'll figure it out. At least the PC hardware is ready to go. It's just a matter of getting the right connection and finding a display you can live with.
Oh my goodness. GTX 1070, people. Oh my goodness. PC Per's got the Founders Edition review 3 weeks after the debut of the 1080. Out came the GTX 1070, kind of debuted live at a streaming event in Austin. GP104 chipset again, 1920 cores to the GTX 1080's 2560, running a little bit slower than the 1080 at 1506 megahertz, 120 texture units to the 1080's 160 texture units, 8 gigabytes of memory. Memory's clocked like 20% slower at 8000 megahertz, 256-bit memory interface, 256 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, down from 320 gigabytes per second on the 1080. It's all pretty modest. The big thing though is the price drop. GTX 1080, which is a fantastic deal for $599. The GTX 1070 is coming in at $379. And if you've been thinking about spending $300 or $400 for a GPU, you should probably think really hard about the GTX 1070. The Founders Edition will be $449, which you don't particularly need. The stock 1070 is going to be $379. Man, the performance per dollar looks really, really good.
I try to price my CPUs and my GPUs about the same when building a new system, and I think that 1070 looks to be a good fit. I try not to get either one too far out of whack in terms of what I'm spending. Try not to, I don't want to pair a low-end CPU with a high-end GPU or vice versa. Right. So,
well, let me spot check really quick on Amazon, because last time I looked at it a couple days ago, the price of the NVIDIA GTX 980 had not gone down, and it's dropping. No, it's not. Yeah, no, don't. So yeah, it's crazy, right? The the GTX, if the GTX was at it still is pretty much at $500. Don't buy a GTX 980 right now. Keep an eye out for the GTX 1070.
It's a brand new part. I mean, there's going to be demand for the limited quantity that's available. So yeah, I wouldn't. You're in a grab war right now with everyone else who's been itching for something new and can go for it.
Well, yeah, they haven't, for all intents and purposes, they haven't really shipped the 1070 in any in any volume as far as I can tell. But this is, you know, the 1080 is not cheap, but the 1070 it's a pretty good deal when you're looking at the performance.
Perfect. Yep.
You know, you don't need a 1070 if you're gaming at 1080p. You know, it's overkill. You know, VR, that's a different story. 4K gaming, that's a different story. If you are, you know, moving to a 2560 by 1440 screen and you're looking to up the quality of your gaming, that's a pretty big deal there. You know, it's kind of amazing how much work Ryan did looking at the kind of value for the boards. You know, the performance per dollar, looking at average frames per second. And, you know, if you know, GeForce GTX 1070 is kind of like 1.0, the GeForce GTX 980 is 0.53, which basically means you're just getting a lot less performance for your money. The 1070 is kind of setting a standard for performance for dollars. It's fast for its price. You know, DX11, DX12 titles, 2560 by 1440. It's faster than a GTX 1080 Ti, which launched at $649. It's still selling for over $600. You know, and this is a $379, or if you get the Founders Edition, $449 card. This is a huge jump. So I don't think there was a lot of joy at AMD when this was announced. So, you know, the question is when they're going to ship and how much they're going to cost, because we've seen over the last couple of years when supplies on GPUs get short, the prices go through the roof. So be patient, Robert. Be patient before you build the next system.
$330. I'll pay $330 for it. I'll wait till it hits that.
You might have to wait a while for it to hit 379. You might have to wait for a while.
I might.
We'll see.
I have parts to collect.
Yes, you do. We want to thank Wealthfront for sponsoring this episode of This Week in Computer Hardware. You should be investing for the long term for you or your family's financial health. That means you'll have more money over time. The idea is to grow your money. If it's for retirement, buying a home, putting your kids through college, doesn't matter. Because trying to do it yourself, investing the right way, it's complex, it's time-consuming, it's kind of scary for a lot of people. Luckily, there's Wealthfront. Traditional advisors charge huge fees between 1% and 3% of what they manage. Even if you've had a bad year, with Wealthfront, you pay 1/4 or 1% a year. That's 25 basis points, zero commissions, no hidden fees. We're talking about less than $5 a month to invest a $30,000 account. No additional charges for any Wealthfront services. And if 30 grand sounds like all the money in the world, don't sweat. You can get started investing today with as little as $500. And if you're young, fresh out of college, maybe not even out of college yet, start saving now if you want to retire before you're 300 years old. Unlike other financial advisors, Wealthfront won't bog you down with dozens of questions. They've simplified the risk identification process that allows you to begin investing sooner, which is a good thing. It only takes a few minutes to sign up at wealthfront.com, and it goes right to work monitoring your portfolios around the clock and taking action as soon as an opportunity arises. Wealthfront portfolios are based on modern portfolio theory. It means they're designed to adjust according to your personal risk tolerance while staying diversified and tax efficient. Wealthfront is transparent. It's accessible. You can view it, track all your accounts in one place. And now Wealthfront can track both your Wealthfront and non-Wealthfront bank and brokerage accounts that they'll provide in a summary. All your assets at a glance. You can see every trade Wealthfront makes on your behalf in your dashboard, on your desktop, or with their mobile app. Wealthfront's managing almost $3 billion in client assets, and it's growing rapidly every day. People, what are you waiting for? Invest in your future today with Wealthfront and save a little bit more money. Visit wealthfront.com/Twitch. That's wealthfront.com/TWiCH to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. You'll see the customized allocation they recommend for your profile. And just for Twit listeners, if you sign up to invest, Wealthfront will manage your first $15,000 entirely free of charge for life. Join the many Twit fans who have seen huge success with Wealthfront and claim your offer today at wealthfront.com/Twitch. Seriously, people. Go check it out, wealthfront.com/Twitch. You'll be helping out the show, and you'll probably be taking a big step towards financial independence yourself. Megam _ tweets at Robert Heron. Any recommendations for a 4x2 HDMI switch? I have one, but it occasionally drops signal to one screen. And I hope I said that name right.
Let me see, a 4x2 switch, a matrix style switch. So effectively you have 2 HDMI outputs with 4 input devices. This is really a handy device to use with something where you're in a viewing space with 2 displays, like a projector and a TV. Then you can have both display devices being fed simultaneously from your source devices. Right. Super handy. And you know what? A little bit more expensive than your standard 1 output switch, but not terribly so. Let me find one I like right here. Perusing my own website of all places where I keep track of my life effectively. Let's see here. Here we go. Kinevo. Actually, it's a company I've used a lot. You can find this up on Amazon or other places too. But they have a 4x2 high-speed HDMI switch, 1080p. 4K switching products I'm not seeing a lot of yet, especially stuff that supports 4K by 2K with HDR and wide color gamut support and the other stuff as well. But just for, what's the price on this? For this Kinevo HS420 Premium, dun, 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 about $70. Looks like. Nice. So, and there are lots of good quality, what they call matrix switches out there. So if you have a particular favorite brand, chances are they have a matrix version of that switch for you to go ahead and get hooked up and power your multiple displays at the same time. Also, too, they have products called amplifiers. If in fact you ever need that, or you have a scenario where you want to supply multiple displays, as many as you need, with the same video output. Maybe you're doing, for whatever reason. That's where you just need a straight amplifier, where it usually has 1 input and then multiple outputs. In this case, it's the HDMI matrix style switches. That can provide also some functionality with the remote control in terms of, you can have, say, 1 port go to 1 display and another port input go to the other display. So you'll have some control and functionality that way as well, if you want to do, break up your video viewing any which way you want. Matrix switches, I've seen them all the way up to 16 by 16. So if you're dealing with really complex installations where you have multiple input devices, multiple displays, and you want to be able to put that content anywhere you want, those are the devices generally you're looking at. I also find that these are all infrared compatible. So if you're using something like a Harmony remote or other remote control device, they'll work just fine. So you don't have to stick to the little gumstick sized remote that comes with most of these products. You can go ahead and use whatever you're currently using as far as universal control. Nice. But Kinevo HS420 is one to start with. Like I said, there are plenty of other good options out there as well. JTech Digital is another company I buy and support. They have a host of great products out there as well. Also available on your online resources for shopping. But yeah, don't fear the HDMI matrix switch. It is a friendly product that generally works really well. And stick to some affordable HDMI cables, and you are set.
There you have it. So we were talking about the 1070, which is a fantastic deal. It seems at $379. What would you pay, Robert Heron, for 1070 level, GTX 1070 level performance from AMD? That's a weird question.
$300?
How about $199?
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Ryan wrote this up sometime late yesterday. AMD Polaris Radeon RX 480 will launch for $199, more than 5 teraflops of compute. They won't say how much more. They haven't talked about the clock speed, number of texture units, the ROP units. But we're looking at the Polaris 10 GPU, 2,304 GPU cores, 4 or 8 gigabytes of memory, an 8,000 megahertz memory clock, a 256-bit memory interface, 256 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. And this is cool. This is big news coming from AMD, a TDP at 150 watts, which is the same TDP for the 1070. It may not be as fast or do as much at peak computing as the 1070, which is running at 5.7 teraflops. But it's running at 14 nanometer process, which means, or it's on a 14 nanometer process, which means they're gaining a little efficiency. 36 CUs, 2,304 stream processors, GDDR5 memory controller. It's really impressive, and it's supposed to
half
launch
the
on June
price.
29th. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Apparently,
I have to give that consideration for sure. I've steered away from AMD cards due to a past experience I had that kind of
right.
left me soured a little bit, and so I am an NVIDIA fanboy, to say the least, when it comes to my graphics cards. So it would be really hard for me to change my loyalties at this point, but half for performance
Well,
of another competitor product I'm looking at. I mean, I'm going to wait for reviews and check it all out, but
yeah, one of the things Ryan says is that it doesn't, AMD, the GTN architecture doesn't operate as efficiency in terms of sort of max performance. So that's probably going to put it. Yeah, well, they're saying it's probably going to be between the 390 and the R9 390 and the R9 390X, which means its real world performance is probably going to be between the GTX 970 and the GTX 980. So,
well, if these reports prove to be true, then that will make the cost, I'm certain, of my future 1070 purchase even more affordable going forward. Especially because you can't have your competitor putting out a product for nearly half the price that comes close to what you're doing without some repercussion there. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's well. You're talking about VR capable performance for $200. That's a big deal. If it's faster than a 970. So we'll see if it ships on time, June 29th. We'll see what the volume is like. And the 1070 custom designs are starting to pour in from vendors right now. So including liquid cooled versions of them. So those will be fun to watch.
That's what I want. I want a liquid cooled graphics card.
Oh my goodness. First, PCs. Now, worldwide smartphone growth is slowing, not dipping, but apparently it's going to, IDC says smartphone growth is going to slow down to 3.1% as focus shifts to device life cycles, which is a big deal because in 2015, you're looking at 10.5% growth, 27.8% growth, i.e. people buying more and more product year over year. Android is 83.7% of the new cell phone market. iOS is 15.3%. Windows Phone has dropped down, or estimated for 2016, to be a paltry 0.8%. But not as paltry as everything else, which is 0.3%. Windows Phone is dead for all intents and purposes. I'm sorry.
Goodbye. There's nothing to apologize for.
Yeah,
I'm wondering too. I wonder if people. I don't know how many other people are like me, but I still have a couple of my previous cell phones, and they're in relatively good condition. So,
yeah.
I mean, I keep them around as a backup spare just in case, but I personally am not finding myself, at least with the last couple generations of phones I've had, of any particular need to upgrade other than something like storage capacity or something basic that may be addressable through, adding a memory card or something. But yeah, my phone, as long as it's working properly, is and it supports all the apps I need it to support, and it's become an increasingly good digital still camera and video camera too. It's Does it work as a GPS? Does it answer my phone calls?
Probably
I'm pretty
not.
set.
It was it's a doorstop. The kind you shove into the door and kick until it cracks. What's interesting is they say phablet growth is expected to stay double digit until 2019. Basically, any phone with a 5.5 inch or larger screen, and the life cycle is around 2 years right now. So,
you figured that's smartphone sized. I mean, whatever if they consider a phablet 5.5 inches or larger, I mean, that includes everything from, say, like Vizio's new SmartCast remote or any tablet.
They're thinking worldwide, right? You're thinking United States, you're thinking Japan, you're thinking Europe. There's a lot of cell phones sold in places where having a bigger than I think it's kind of like 1080p gaming. You got to a certain point and you just couldn't get much better, even if you spend a bunch of money on a hardware. And it seems like people are looking around and going like, wow, I got a decent Snapdragon processor. I got a 5-inch screen. Why do we need to upgrade this? That might explain some of the stranger things coming out of cell phone manufacturers. Speaking of which,
well, I would like to just simply see things like Android be updated more frequently on some of the carrier handsets I have. That's
supposedly Google is working to apply pressure to the carriers, if for no other reason than security, because the lag time is so huge between.
I do seem to get security updates, but I'm not getting the latest versions of Android, which is something that kind of bums me out compared to having a pure Android phone like from say Google and their Nexus series products. And that's the one thing. I mean, I love my Samsung handset. And I love the customizations I'm able to do to it. But in the end, I really do miss those days of having, a rooted Android device with the full ability to just be as clean as the wind and just, have it the way I want. Uninstall some of that bloat too. And, anyway.
There's not enough pure Android device. There need to be more pure Android devices. That would be nice.
Yeah. I would pay more
unmolested.
for pure Android. Yeah.
But can you get updates? Oh, wait, that's controlled by the carrier. I'm still bitter about that. MSI Aegis, the world's fiercest mobile gaming barebone PC series. It looks like somebody severed some sort of Guardians of the Galaxy background robot meets Saga, meets, I don't know.
What the hell is that?
It's a PC case, dude. Well, this is the slide that interests me the most.
Does it shoot plasma? Or no, those are just showing airflow.
No, that's showing the airflow. I do like the way it's designed. Slurping in air through the bottom, expelling air, vomiting air out through the top. VR ready. But the Aegis 001 bus and the Aegis X001 bus, LGA 1151 up to Intel Core i7 6700 or 6700K, depending on which module you use, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080. Basically, it's a really nice case and a motherboard and, air cooling and lots of space to stuff things for $399 or $499. Not cheap. But like many designer cases we've seen over the years, you'll either love it or you'll hate it. I do like how they suck in the air for the GPU from the side. That's pretty awesome.
Very cool.
CPU air comes from the back. Power. It's I don't know. It's interesting. It's nice to see people trying.
For any case I'm looking at nowadays, it's all about dust management. So put that in a house full of pets, and then show that box to me in about 2 months, and see how well it managed. Challenging environmental situations.
Is it on the floor or is it on the desk?
I have it. I keep my PC in a rack, so it's like 6-8 inches off the floor, and I still have to take it apart and blow it out whenever I notice my graphics card getting a little uppity in temperature, or the CPU. It gives me a good warning, at least. But I mean, I appreciate the clever case designs, but for me now, it's more about just the day-to-day usability, especially with dust management.
I had a question I've been playing with. Somebody's like,
keep it clean on the inside. I don't care how dirty it gets on the outside, as long as I pull off the filters easily and wash them up. So
there you have it. One last one before we go. Digital Storm's Aura. If you've been looking for the giant screen, 34-inch curved display, literally with an entire PC laid out in the back, motherboard, full size GTX space for a full size GTX 1080 graphics card, hard drives. It's pretty crazy. Scroll down a little bit so you see the picture of the back there, and you can see the speakers and the solid state drive and the GTX 1080. Click on that picture. It's pretty awesome. So you can actually do upgrades to it and keep it going. Not cheap. With an Intel Core i5 6500, a GeForce GTX 960, 16 gigs of DDR4, you're looking at $2,000. But remember, you are also getting this inside of a 32-inch monitor that is hosting your entire PC. So it's a pretty good. It's an interesting. Chassis. I like the idea.
That's slick. I like all-in-one designs, and pop-up camera.
Yeah,
that's pretty slick too. And I think the convenience aspect, and this is really this goes beyond everything I've looked at in terms of your all-in-ones, at least of late. Having a full-size graphics card in addition to the super wide screen curve monitor, but having it all built into the display, especially if you know they're going to be pretty quality parts and you don't.
Yeah.
There's not a lot in that system, especially when you get to the higher tiers, that I would be changing out.
Right.
And that would be my only concern about the system like this is down the road. The one upgrade I do on my PCs without fail, it seems, is a graphics card upgrade every couple of years. So as long
you
as
can
that
do a full-size GPU here.
That makes me happier, especially considering something I usually would steer away from in terms of the all-in-one systems. But
Well, I mean,
I was just looking at an all-in-one for my mom recently because I thought it would be an easier thing for her. She doesn't need this, but I like it. I do like Digital Storm stuff. So,
well, most all-in-ones are essentially a laptop stuffed into a monitor, but this is an actual full-size. I mean, it's an actual full-size desktop. Gigabyte Z170N Gaming 5 Z170 chipset Mini ITX motherboard. So you're not going to be running 2 GPUs inside of this. But for 3440 by 1440 QHD gaming, you probably don't need it. That's a really nice. That monitor has legs.
I would be curious though to hear what the volume, the sound profile of this system would be, considering that you've got a display that's producing its own heat with the graphics card right there, which arguably is the hottest part in the whole system, and the CPU and everything else involved. Once it's all sealed up, I mean, it looks great with the chassis off on the back in the pictures, but when it's sealed up, is it going to be distracting for those times you don't have your headsets on?
One of the things you can do, instead of using the factory Intel heatsink and fan, you can upgrade to a Digital Storm Vortex liquid CPU cooler, which in your case, I think would be a good idea because you want the quiet.
I do.
We assume it's quiet because it's a liquid cooler. But that's going to add another $100 to the price. I wonder if they have any options yet on the GPU. That would be interesting if they could find, as they come out, some of the faster or some of the more quiet GPU options out there.
That's something else you could think about down the road as well. That's the other thing too. If you're buying any of these new parts, especially on the GPU side, generally those first few different things that are available are going to be reference board designs. So I'm sure the cooling is more than adequate, but it might not be the low noise profile you're looking for, or I guess for water cooling, you can really go custom on that and totally just strip the board down to bare and start from zero. But I've also been taking a look at some of the new cards too that just incorporate, sealed water cooling units in them as well. And I got to say, it's tempting. Knowing how much heat those graphics cards can dump off when they're running modern 3D games or doing any kind of compute projects. That's where I normally would just ignore liquid cooling altogether. But in the case of the graphics card in particular, it'd be nice to have, especially for those intense compute moments, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
intense personal computing moments with Robert Heron. Oh my goodness. If you haven't heard it, ladies and gentlemen, we should tell you about a podcast Robert Heron and I do. It's called AV Excel, AVEXCEL. Excel. Yeah. Like Excelsior without all those extra letters at the end. Excel. Yeah, AV Excel. Well, we kind of like we used to do HD Nation. AV Excel is Robert and I talking about home theater. Guess what? 4K, UHD, streaming, Blu-ray, televisions, home theater, setting things up, getting the best deal for your money, projectors. We love projectors and headphones and many other things like speakers and surround sound and configuring things. We like the home entertainment because we don't really like to leave home except to go to national parks. But if you haven't seen it, we would love it if you went and checked it out. It's avexcel.com. You can always find Robert's latest writing, missives and pics from televisions to HDMI cables, and they're inexpensive HDMI cables, and they're good at heronfidelity.com. You can find more of me at TekThing.com with my co-host and partner in crime, Shannon, who just got back from Japan and has some excellent travel tips. And we also talking about why you probably don't need to worry about cell phones giving you cancer or your headphones. Just saying. That's TekThing.com. And if this is your first episode of This Week in Computer Hardware, do us a favor, go to twit.tv/TWiCH. And you can find all of our older episodes, information on how to subscribe. And we invite you to email us or tweet. I'm Patrick Norton.
Hey, and I'm Robert Heron.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.